All right. So I guess we'll start it off like we normally do, which is to just give a general brief reaction to this week's lecture. What did you guys think of Emma Vidal's work?
I thought especially hold on, I have notes on what it was, but the where is it? The push pin texture that she did on that little golden I can't even remember exactly what it was. So the texture itself just looked super interesting. And she said she drew a lot of her inspiration from religious sources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not just like European sort of religious sources, but the sort of ritualistic or fetish objects from different African countries as well, which is, I mean, just kind of goes to show like the breadth of like where she's getting sort of inspiration from, which I think is really interesting. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because, you know, she was working on those drawings and then it took like a total like 180 to sculpture and like working with mixed media and found objects. I don't know. I always find it interesting when I see people sort of jump media so quickly like that. Because I mean, you guys can tell me a little bit more about your experience just in you know, your own studio practice, but like I feel like oftentimes in art school they try to like get you to pin down like what your focus is. Like, do you guys feel that pressure to like stick with sort of a path, or do you feel like you've been encouraged to kind of go after multiple media if you have like an inclination towards more than one thing?
I feel like, oh, sorry, Lauren. I feel like I used to feel kind of pressured to do one thing because I thought that's how it kind of was supposed to go in like school, but I feel like I can just do whatever I feel like pretty much. Like, like when I switched my major over to graphic design, I very much was like, oh, it's more than just like formatting stuff. Like I can actually like draw and do whatever I want type of thing. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I still kind of feel like I need to narrow myself down, but there's no like rush to do that at all.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's a freedom that sort of comes when, as an artist, you finally have that realization that you can choose the media that best fits the idea or the concept. There's something about that, like, you know, she was working with the push pins, right? And then she enjoyed doing that, but then like she came to St. Louis, went to Intersect, and all of a sudden she had ceramics facilities. And then she realized that the media she had been using, the sort of mixed media found object, was actually limiting her because, you know, she had to work within the confines of what the material could do. Because then she was introduced to an entirely plastic material that she could manipulate in whatever form. So I think there's something that could be incredibly liberating when you allow yourself to sort of embrace everything, which is like not an easy task to do, right? You know, like she's not a trained ceramicist. And if any of you guys have ever taken ceramics, like it is not easy. And there are a lot of like things that can go wrong and a lot of like sort of niche level information that kind of acts as like a barrier to entry or a learning curve. But I think there's something to recognizing the potential in other forms of making that that if you stick to it, if you're willing to kind of put in the work to get over those barriers, you can really kind of like explode and open yourself up as a maker. of you know, visual objects, you know, two-dimensional or otherwise. It's funny because I've seen a lot of really amazing drawings at, you know, galleries or wherever in New York City, or out when I was visiting in California, by sculptors like Mark Dion, who we had you know, give a talk last year in the fall. His drawings are some of my favorite drawings that I've ever seen, and he uses like Crayola, like colored pencils, to make his drawings of like all of his sort of artifact cases and boxes, and he does them as almost like scientific study drawings, but they're all done in like red colored pencil, and I just think it's kind of fascinating when people are willing to embrace sort of the opposite of what they're known for, and I think you can kind of discover a lot of things about yourself through that process. Well, and you have to consider, like, you're committing yourselves to a life of making art, right? So do you just want to do the same thing all the time for the rest of your life? No, that's going to get hella boring. You're going to get so tired of even looking at your own artwork, and then that's going to sort of inhibit you from wanting to make more of it. So I think the more you can kind of open yourself up to different possibilities, the better. So Liv is apologizing because she's stuffing her face with pasta right now. You thought it was interesting that she basically had her own story characters, but was also kind of a fine arts artist. As someone who constantly creates stories and characters, it's so nice to hear that something like that can be appreciated outside things like fandom circles and personal work. I completely agree. But there's also this entire subset of artists that specialize in the idea of world building, and they have sort of like been accepted in the fine art world. I understand what you're talking about though, which is like I feel like, especially in the stage that you guys are at, some of that world building or character building oftentimes gets discouraged, which I kind of hate. Again, I feel like there are large parts of our discussions where I complain about how we run the critique and or academic system, because I know of a ton of artists that work within that world building like sphere. If you guys are any of you guys familiar with Trenton Doyle Hancock's work? Oh my God, you guys. That's like all he does. He started out as like an illustrator painter, and he creates all of these weird characters just based upon this like idea of an entire created world. And he's not only stayed in the two-dimensional realm, but over at Mass MoCA, which is like a very large art space in Massachusetts, he recently did like a giant installation that you could actually walk through that was called Mind of the Mound, based on like his mound creatures that he created. And it essentially kind of looked, at least from like an aerial view, like a giant board game that you could like literally experience as the viewer. So I think there's plenty of artists that kind of work within that. So if it is something that you have a natural inclination towards, Liv, like go for it. I would say like don't let the man beat that out of you, because I think individual people's minds are potentially one of the most fascinating places to like peer into. And I think if you have that idea of creating a different world, or this idea of narrative that you're interested in, if you focus on it or you put energy into it, usually you will find an audience that is also interested in looking at it as well. Excellent. What else? What'd you guys like? is interesting because I think it's one of, not the first international sort of artist that we've had at Webster, but we haven't had one in a while. So it's sort of interesting to hear potentially the journey that, I don't know. It's just always different when you hear from someone who like went to school outside of the States and some of their like sensibilities and how they navigate the art world. What do you guys think about her advice on navigating the gallery system in the art world? She legitimately said that she called galleries and just cold called them. And basically just said, hey, I make art. Do you need any art? Have any of you guys ever done that or even thought that that would be an option?
Not a gallery, but I did it to the VA. That's where I get my insurance through the VA. Mm-hmm. And I saw they had like posters and they just looked bad. And I just called the office at the thing and I asked to go to them and I asked them if they needed a designer. They essentially asked me for one piece and then didn't hire me or anything, but it's worth a shot.
It's definitely worth a shot. I mean, you have to sort of navigate the language that you use carefully, especially if you're trying to let them know that like they have a design problem. Because oftentimes people don't want to hear that. But I know of a couple of designers that have done exactly that, Jacob, where they literally saw posters or a website that was like atrocious. And they were just like, I can fix that for you. Got a couple other people joining us. I mean, yeah, there's something about this attitude of just, again, not being fearful, but just understanding that the worst thing that could happen is that they could say no. But as artists, we already need to be sort of like, you know, preparing and getting used to hearing that word over and over and over again. Simply because, you know, we're not going to be the cup of tea for everybody. Not for every show, not for every job, not for every gallery, museum, any of that. Like a lot of the times we have to like, it has to be like the perfect combination of effort that we have put in, you know, like she said, the work, you have to dedicate yourself to the work, but it also, you know, there's a certain like dash of luck in there. There's timing. All of that has to align perfectly in order for opportunities to sort of fall into place. And it's really easy to kind of get discouraged. But I imagine like, you know, you shot your shot with the VA, that's not going to potentially inhibit you from ever contacting them again. Or if they ever did, you know, post a job, I assume you would still just say, hey, remember me? I told you that you needed to hire a graphic designer like a year ago. Hello again.
I was talking to Katie about that, and she was saying when she worked at Cosmic Dust, I think is what it's called. Mm-hmm. She was in charge of the program, and she was like, somebody shot her an email, and she was in the middle of a situation where she just happened to need a designer that day, and she ended up picking them up, and they worked there for like a year.
Yeah.
So it's like right place, right time too. Like
Absolutely.
you could just shoot something out and end up lucky.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, and Emma also is talking about this idea of surrounding yourself with creative people, right? So that not only is sort of helping you challenge yourself and keep yourself sort of inspired and motivated and get good feedback from other people that you trust who are within like this creative circle that you build around yourself, but it's also networking because you never know who knows someone that knows someone that needs to hire someone. Case in point, the best job that I've ever gotten before I left New York was working for Matthew Barney. And the only reason why I got that job was because one of the girls who I'd worked with at my first job in New York City, her sister was working on their team. And I met her once when we went out for pizza, and she happened to like have a conversation with me about mold making. And then it just so happens that like 2 years later, one of their mold makers went on a sabbatical and they needed a replacement. So she remembered this one time that I met her 2 years prior. And then I ended up getting a call and got hired for one of, honestly, like my favorite positions I ever held. So you don't know who you're meeting or what their significance is going to be, which is really just motivation to not sort of judge people preemptively, because, you know, if you approach someone with kindness and a genuine sort of interest, you know, they will sort of meet you at the same place, and it could take you anywhere. Also, it's just, I feel like it's a lot easier to continue making even when it's hard, when you also have other people around that are making even when it's hard. So like if all of your friends are artists, then like they're gonna give you shit if you're not making anything. You know, they're gonna ask you those questions. They're gonna say like, what have you been working on lately? And then when you say not a whole lot, they're either going to, you know, haze you for it, or they will ask you, you know, important questions like why, or what's stopping you, or, you know, they'll be there to encourage you. You guys have that now in academia. Less, I know it's really hard with everything being remote, and so some of the sense of the community has sort of dissipated, but it is still really important. And it might be a thing that you have to like actually chase after. You can be the friend that like constantly is bothering people, you know, to hang out or do like a open work hangout session via Zoom. They're not as fun, but it's what we got right now. That's something that I learned a long time ago, is like, be the annoying friend. Like nobody's going to get mad at you for continuing to foster a relationship with them. They normally enjoy it and appreciate it, whether they say it or not. Yeah, what else? What about applying to stuff at way ahead of time and prepping for the future? Have any of you guys given any thought to sort of what you're going to be doing? Have you made plans to apply to anything for when you guys sort of graduate and move beyond Webster? Hello?
No, but but listening to like the last part of that talk, I kind of was like, I should jump on that, you know, like, because it's better to do it early than just to wait, like, oh, yeah, it's the last month of school. Let me just start, you know, or I've already graduated. Let's start doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just to, or even just to look up stuff and like make lists of things you might be interested in even helps. Like, just really small things can even help. So,
yeah. One of the artists that I was blown away by in grad school when he gave a presentation, kind of talked about that, making lists or whatever. He didn't just have a list, he had an Excel spreadsheet that had what appeared to be every single art opportunity that exists in the world, color-coded, of exhibition opportunities, residencies that come up yearly, because oftentimes, like I said, you'll apply 1 year, not going to be your cup of tea that year, but you continue to apply to these things yearly. He had like a breakdown of like what the application fees are, which is really important to know if you're actually having to put in money to apply to these things when you guys are first starting out. You don't want to do that. Don't do the ones that cost money, because those rejections are going to hit a little bit harder because they're hitting financially. You know, but he had this whole spreadsheet that had, you know, application deadline dates. It had, you know, a breakdown of all of the things that you needed for the application. You know, but when pressed, when we sort of like poked him about this like master Excel sheet that he had. You know, he had been working on it for years. It's just a thing that became part of his practice, that whenever he came across another opportunity that came up sort of annually, and he became aware of it, he would then add it to the master document. That way, you know, obviously you can't afford and or have time to apply to everything, but it is a nice thing to be able to sort of look at it and know, say, you know, I have a free afternoon, what deadlines are coming up, what can I apply to, and then you just sort of go from there whenever you do have time, because that is a thing that is never going to go away. So you're talking about, you know, like you don't want to wait until like the last minute of like your last semester or whatever. I'm here to tell you that that never goes away. You're going to be applying to things forever, all the time. And oftentimes you're always going to feel like you're in your last semester because you wait until the last minute if you're anything like me. Yeah, I mean, I think it's incredibly beneficial for you guys to start thinking about that stuff. Again, I don't know if I mentioned it to this class, but a really good place to start is the call for entry website, also known as CAFE, C-A-F-E. That almost works similarly to that Excel spreadsheet. Like there's a breakdown of what type of opportunity it is. If it's sort of a regional opportunity, a local, national, international, if it's a residency, if it's an exhibition opportunity, but then it also can be organized by deadline. So you can see the stuff that like is due tomorrow or today, and sort of make your choices strategically from there. I think starting out, it's really good to start local. And you guys have the great benefit of living and working in St. Louis. St. Louis actually has like quite a few opportunities just within gallery spaces and internships and all of that stuff within sort of the Tri-City area or the Tri-County area. So I would highly recommend that you guys kind of look into that.
That's actually a question I have. So I have a setup to move to San Diego almost immediately after I graduate.
Okay.
Since I won't have an art network out there or anything like that, what kind of I guess advice would you have for someone that's moving to a completely new area without any like resume experience?
So are you moving out there sort of with a job lined up or just
No, I'm just moving back out there because my buddy owns a house and he and I are gonna live there, and I miss San Diego. That's all it is.
Okay. Well, I would say immediately your buddy is potentially an excellent starting point because he could introduce you to people that he knows in the area, whether they would be art related or not. Again, like I said, you can never sell people short, so you never know who you're meeting. So it's more about the actual sort of long game process of getting to know that person potentially introducing you to other people, et cetera, et cetera. But the other thing is just doing your due diligence and seeing what art spaces are around there. I know that's a little tricky right now because not every place is open sort of to the public, or they're doing a vast majority of their programming online. But it doesn't hurt to, I mean, this is actually the ideal scenario for you to like cold contact places. Because what else are you going to do? Like it'll just be one more email that they have to answer that day. And you never know, like you said, they could have had like a cancellation and they could need a designer. But again, I think what Emma said about setting yourself up for success and creating a portfolio ahead of time, like a professional portfolio, having, I don't know if you have like a design or artist website, that helps a lot. If you don't have that, which those can be put together pretty quickly, pretty easily, either through like Wix.com or Squarespace or whatever. But I understand that all of that sort of costs money because you have to pay for like the service and the domain name. if that is sort of outside of your capacity, creating a professional sort of social media account, Instagram specifically can lend itself to a wonderful visual portfolio tool. And just something that is specifically set up for your professional life outside of like, you know, your own individual account. Because you know, if you prevent or you present yourself in a way that looks professional, then people will assume that you are, and then they will want to contact you and want to potentially give you opportunities. That is what I would say is just research. When I move to a new place, I nerd out and I look and see what is actually there. And you'd be surprised how often people will say yes to, you know, getting coffee or just having a conversation. You know, that's how I've gotten half of the lecture speakers this semester. Some of them are people I know from grad school or, you know, when I've lived elsewhere. But, you know, a couple of these people I've never even met. I just emailed them and I was like, hey, are you interested in doing a lecture? And surprisingly, most of them have said yes. So don't discredit the kindness of strangers. I'll put it that way. A lot of people are very welcoming. Excellent question. So that's coming up soon?
Next year.
Oh, okay. Who else is talking?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're a little low.
Okay, I'm gonna yell louder. We've talked about residencies a lot, but we haven't really gone through what exactly that means. Like, who's in charge and like of the places where I'll be staying? Like, how does that work? What are the dynamics of that?
Okay, so there's a couple of different classes of residencies. Some of which are sort of a pay-to-play scenario, which means that you still have to apply to the residency, you still have to get in, but then you also have to pay a residency fee or the cost of a residency. So you're actually sort of paying to go to a residency program. Now, this is not necessarily like a scam or a bad thing. Some of these are very prestigious residency programs, such as like Skowhegan is a visual arts residency that, like, if you get it on your resume, like, it's a big friggin' deal. However, Skowhegan typically is a pay-to-play residency, but they do that for a couple of different reasons. Normally, the artists that get into Skowhegan can get sponsorship from like their academic institutions or you know, a Kickstarter thing, or some of the residencies have separate financial aid based applications that you would have to fill out on top of the residency application. So there's those types of residencies. And usually the way that you find out if you get in is they either have a board of directors who votes every single time, and it's sort of the same group of people that is allowing people into the residency programs, or there's like a rotating panel of residency judges. So this is why you would want to apply to the same residency more than one time, even if you get rejected. And that's because the panel one year might be looking for a certain like type of work, type of artist. They might be trying to check off a couple of different boxes, but the next year you're going to have a whole different panel that has a different checklist and they're looking for different things. And you might hit every single one of those boxes the next year. Again, it's constantly like playing, you know, Russian roulette. You gotta spin the barrel and see what happens. Now, most residencies are usually shorter in term. They can go from 2 weeks to 3 months. That's your average residency. And I'm going to break that period of time residency down into two categories. There's going to be the residency that only gives you a workspace. So those are going to be the ones that are typically looking for applicants from the regional area. So St. Louis has a couple of those where it's a residency program, but the primary focus of the residency program is to help local artists within the community gain access to studio space or facilities or tools. So those are going to be a little bit more regional in terms of who they even accept applications from, or you know, you might apply to one of those. Let's say you want to go to the Pacific Northwest, right? And you think that you'd be really inspired by all of the nature and everything out there. You could look in that area and potentially find a residency program that provides studio space, but you yourself would then have to figure out the living situation. And then the other category is going to be the residency programs that offer you not only studio space, but also studio and housing. And oftentimes like some meals, and oftentimes a stipend. So that is the golden goose. The golden goose is a residency program that offers you housing, a studio space that is typically 24-hour access, which means that you can like 24-hour nerd out on art without focusing on anything else for whatever that period of time is. Plus, you know, there might be like a honorarium or food included. A lot of the time, if they have multiple people in the residency program, you're in what is referred to as a cohort, which means that they bring in like a certain amount of artists at a time, and then you all live sort of in a house or apartment building together. And so you're constantly surrounded by other artists, which you can imagine, like you could benefit from that greatly, because you would get to meet artists from all over. You would get to have studio visits with them. It's a lot like kind of being in school again. But yeah, those are the ones that you really want to go after, especially if you're paying for the application fees for a lot of these, because you would get a much higher return on your investment if you actually did get that residency. Because, you know, that's free housing, that's a free studio, and then potentially they will give you a small stipend or honorarium, which is basically free money to help you buy supplies. Now, there are a few, not a whole lot, but a few residency programs that are upwards of a year or two. And those are the ones that are going to be incredibly competitive. However, those are like career changing residencies. Like there's one in Roswell, New Mexico, of all places, that is called the Artist in Residence program in Roswell. And that one is a 1-year residency that can be renewable up to 2 years. And essentially they give you a house in Roswell that also has a studio in it, and you go and live out there for a year. So that is an entire year of time that you don't have to have a day job. Your day job is making art. So there's a couple of those out there where they just want to give you unfettered studio time. And they offer you the opportunity of doing that because they house you. They give you a monthly stipend, which is usually enough money to buy some supplies and to cover all of your food costs. It's essentially like living for free for a year. And you just only get to make art, which is frankly the dream. But like I said, those are very competitive. Does that answer your question? Yeah. I know all of that, and yet I have never gotten an artist residency. I've applied to many. That doesn't mean that I get them. But yeah, you can sort of see how some of those are going to be more beneficial than others are, especially if you're in a scenario, which most of you will be, and most of us are, which is you have to figure out how to live and pay bills. So these are a lot of the time a year-long artist residency where you uproot your entire life is not going to be an option for you. Even uprooting your life for 3 months might not be an option for you. And so you have to sort of gauge what you can do feasibly while still maintaining like a healthy level of income to sort of keep yourself afloat otherwise, where you can kind of narrow down the ones that you can apply to at each point in your career. So maybe you can only do 2 weeks at an art residency, but 2 weeks is better than nothing. So yeah, it's good to know that there's different tiers and all of that out there, but it is a lot to navigate. Oh, I think there's another website that's called Artist in Residence. Again, it's like cafe. It's one of those, or no, it's called Res Artists, RESARTIS. That's the website that has the list of like every artist residency like in the world and like when the application deadlines are. Yeah. But really it's just like, it's like getting to go back into a space where you have your own studio and can make work without being interrupted by the real world. It's a little art bubble is what artist residencies are. It's great. Any other pertinent real world questions we got coming up today? We're getting some good ones.
I have a question.
Do it.
So I feel like I have an idea of like what I want to do. Like I would like to, teach at a university level, but I have like never really asked people like how you get to do that. I'm assuming, you need a master's or some school beyond a 4-year degree. So I was just wondering like if you have some insight you can give me.
I do. I've walked that path. That is how I'm
right
today. So if you want to teach at the university level, you have to get a terminal degree in your field, which if you're going to be teaching fine art, is a master's degree or an MFA. I typically do not tell people that they should go to graduate school unless they want to teach. Because I'm a firm believer that most people can figure almost anything out on their own. However, in order to teach, you do have to have a terminal degree. So that is worth the investment because that is the only way that you will get one of these jobs. I do want to say, jobs in academia are hard, and there is a certain amount of paying your dues that sort of exists within teaching. So I am considered an adjunct or contingent faculty, which means that I am not employed as a full-time employee of the academic institutions that I typically work at. And adjuncting does not pay super well, and it doesn't come with any benefits. So just keep that in mind. So you typically, it's like paying your dues, right? You have to like teach a certain amount of years or a certain amount of classes before you are seen as having enough real world experience that you then become a contender for the full-time tenure track positions, which are like the good jobs. So you have to kind of like be on the struggle bus a little bit, which is sort of the same in any field. Cause I don't know if you guys have looked at applying to jobs yet or have already like been on the hunt. But you'll notice that a lot of jobs nowadays literally are asking for any applicant to already have 3 years of experience. But you might be sitting there thinking, well, how do I get 3 years of experience if I can't get a job because all of the jobs need 3 years of experience? It's like this maddening process where they want every applicant to already have professional experience, but you can't get professional experience because you don't already have it. So it's the academic teaching world is similar to that. So for the first couple of years, you kind of just have to take what you can get. One of the things that sort of helps you work around that is if you go to a program that allows you to be a TA or a graduate assistant instructor. So I went to a 3-year program, and it allowed me to actually teach my own courses like the last year that I was there, year and a half. So I taught for like a year and a half in grad school, which was, granted, it's teaching experience while you're still a graduate student, as an instructor of record is what they call it. But it's still teaching experience nonetheless, which definitely helped me get, you know, my first job as an adjunct when I came to St. Louis. You know, they were like, have you taught before? I was like, yeah, I taught in grad school. And they were like, cool. It also helps if like you end up going to a place after graduate school that isn't like New York City. So like you're not going to get a teaching job in New York City if you don't have like 10 years of experience and also happen to be a famous artist, right? So like hedge your bets. That's not going to work. You know, I lived in New York City, did not teach because I couldn't get a teaching job up there. I did fabrication. So going to a place, a smaller city, potentially the best way to position yourself is being in a town that has many different universities. So like St. Louis is a great area because there's like Lindenwood University, there's St. Louis Community College, there's UMSL, there's Washington University, there's Webster, you know, there's Fontbonne, there's SIUE, which is kind of a short drive. So it's, if you do it strategically, you can end up in a place where even though you're working part-time, we're not part-time, but you're working as an adjunct or contingent faculty member, you can piece together enough classes to sort of like pay rent and your bills. And then you do that for a couple of years, and then yeah, you try your luck at the job application, you know, Price is Right wheel all the time. It's the same thing. It's luck, chance, but I also don't believe it's only luck and chance. I also believe it's do you work hard and are you really freaking good at what you do? So if you can do those things, Emily, and you can get a terminal degree, then you'll be fine. Because talent recognizes talent. And I don't define talent as an inherent thing that is just within you. It's a thing that you have to work really, really hard for. So, does that help? I sort of gave you the harsh reality of that, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I expected. But I've heard, I know you've said, and I've heard like a lot of people say like, oh yeah, like grad school, you can find ways to like not pay for it entirely. And I'm just like definitely interested in that.
So that's about doing the right research. And finding the program that you would fit in best with. So it's about like looking at the program, what they specialize in, looking at the instructors and the work that the instructors make. So usually if you apply to a school that has like, you know, a painting instructor that like you think is really rad and like you really want to study with that person, when they look at the applicants for the graduate school for that year, there's usually a chance that like that painting instructor will see your application and potentially understand the connection that could be made there as well. So it's actually kind of weird. It's like if you look for what you want, you would be surprised because they might want you back. And if that's the scenario, and you don't just put all your eggs in one basket, you find a bunch of places like that. It helps if they're state schools because state schools have more money. But you apply to a bunch of schools like that. And then hopefully you get into more than one. And this is a thing that they often don't tell you. If you get into more than one program, you usually can pit them against one another when you're in the decision-making process of where you're going to go. So case in point, I got into Washington University in St. Louis. And I also got into quite a few places, but the places that were actually offering me like tuition waivers and like honorarium stipends or fellowship money, basically free money, were WashU and USF. And so I actually had a back and forth between WashU and USF for a couple weeks. And USF ended up being where I decided to go for a couple of reasons. They offered me a full tuition waiver, meaning all tuition was covered with the exception of like fees, like course fees. But then they also offered me the fellowship for the first year that I was there. So I got paid to go to graduate school the first year that I was there. Now, granted, you know, that's not covering like your living cost. So you also have to factor this in. This is why you want to get as much of your school paid for as possible. And it's because you are going to have to pay to live in whatever city it is in. So again, I would take advice like from Emma, where she was saying it's like a hell of a lot cheaper to live in St. Louis than it is in London. So when you keep all of that stuff in mind and you're smart about it, you can usually set yourself up for a little bit more success than like, you know, getting trapped under crushing amounts of debt. It's also like being smart. Like they typically tell you that you shouldn't have like a full-time job while you're going to graduate school, but you know, you can have side gigs. You can always figure out a side hustle to sort of help support the living costs when you're in grad school. So I would definitely recommend like figuring something like that out while you're in grad school. But yeah, it's really about doing research and looking into where you want to go, who you want to study with, because it usually leads to you getting into those programs. Yeah. I wanted to do a 3-year program because I knew I wanted to teach. So I knew I was going to be able to get more teaching experience in a 3-year program. Because the 2-year one is like over before you even know it. All right. And if you have any other like specific questions about that kind of stuff, let me know. I've helped a few Webster people like prepare like their statement of intents or parts of their application before. I know Jeff also does that as well. He's always open to helping people out. He's on sabbatical this semester, but he'll be back next semester. All right, any other questions? These are good today, guys. Did everybody create their studio creature? Their studio demon? Do we want to move into sharing those? Come on, y'all. Monica's just shaking her head.
I'm getting to the discussion because just to have it open.
For those of you not applying to graduate school, I apologize for the giant rant that I just went on. But the more you know. Does anybody have theirs like up, ready to share?
Yeah, I have mine in my sketchbook right here.
You got it? You want to show it to us?
He's a doodle guy because I do a lot of these.
I like it.
Holding a sign and it says, "Shut up and just do something." Because I don't do very well with the whole like, oh, just take a break when you need to, be nice to yourself and blah, blah, blah. Because I already do too much of that and then I never do anything.
You
So
need
I need like the harsh critic to be like, stop thinking so hard about it and just do it. And then I also started doodling more, and I have like a little mob of people with tiny signs and pitchforks and because that's what I need, I think. But this guy has a sign that says, "What if it all goes right?" And this one just says, "Just do." This one says, "You have ideas." Because sometimes I convince
you need one
myself
of
that
them
I don't have any idea what I want to, but I have ideas. What?
You need one that has a sign that says, "That's not your
Oh,
job."
and then there's just a little artist.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like them. Are you
That's all.
gonna put it up in your art space to boss you around?
Probably. Yeah, I think so. I think it might actually help,
Yeah.
but we'll see.
I will tell you guys, my home studio has been a giant, excuse my French, but clusterfuck for like 2 months probably. It also doesn't help that it's completely surrounded by windows and it's been really, really cold, and it kind of feels like I'm in an ice cube when I'm in that room. But I overcame a 2-month nonsense streak of not doing anything and actually started cleaning my studio yesterday. So I'm right there with you. The motivation can be hard. I haven't been showing up for myself. And then I had a moment yesterday. I was like, how am I telling these people that they need to like do some stuff? And I'm just sitting here being like a lazy bones. It's like, no offense, but like playing with my dog is not like moving my career forward. Maybe I'll get there. Maybe I'll become an acclaimed dog portraitist. Who knows? All right. Who else? Who's got a critter for us?
Mine's pulled up.
You gonna share screen, Jacob?
Yeah.
Okay, give me 1 second. I gotta make you co-host.
Okay.
All right, you are good.
Which there it is. So this guy is like, I don't know. I draw people like this all the time. So that's kind of it. Just like I want to force myself to do work, and I get into it, and I'm just like, do I have to do this? Why do I? And I just get stuck, and then eventually I just make this guy all the time.
He's very stern, and he's all business.
Yes, that's the idea. It's fun. I have in my sketchbook, I have a couple of similar drawings, and then I have like wispy guys of this. He's got like this face, and then he's just like a ghost, and it's just like the lack of motivation too. Sometimes I don't know.
Yeah. So I was like, draw your creative genius, and your creative genius looks like he's a micromanager at a corporation.
It's like, you got to do this work.
This just reminds me of Office Space. I feel like your creative genius is just sitting here going like, yeah.
Probably one of my favorite movies
in on Saturday.
Yeah. They took my red stapler. God, I haven't seen that movie in so long. But yeah,
I know it's so relevant, right? So like a lot of the time we want to have an actual weekend that's fun and relaxing, but like, yeah, we do need to like work on the weekend sometimes, like in the studio, and sometimes we don't want to do it. And so maybe it is like the boss that we maybe begrudgingly hate that makes us come in. Like I kind of like that actually.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. It's Mr. Enthusiasm. All right.
Looks very enthusiastic. All right, that's awesome. Who else? What do we got?
I can go next.
Excellent. You need to share screen?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Okay, you are co-host.
Okay. So I spent my weekend like making this. I haven't done an oil painting in a really long time, so I used this opportunity to do that, and it was very fun because I haven't done that in a while. So yeah, I kind of imagined, I don't really know what I made, but I imagined like I have this idea all the time where like when you die you become your favorite color. So like I imagine like a red orb like as a person. And then like I'm gonna sound crazy. And then like this being is kind of like similar to, I don't know if you've ever watched Adventure Time. I watched it as a kid. So like Prismo, like where like Prismo, like that little being in some kind of um universe where like time doesn't exist and stuff. I tried to make a being that would be there. I'm not making any sense, but I don't know. This is what I made.
I like it.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with the band Devo.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This reminds me of like a Devo album cover.
It just needs the hat.
Like you have like a de-evolution character that lives in your studio. I like it.
Yeah, and like it's, I don't know, I wanted to make something like that has some kind of other like worldly knowledge of like, because it's giving me all these ideas in theory, so it knows better than I do.
Yeah, coming from like a completely foreign place.
Yeah.
To like sprinkle the magic on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Love that.
That's rad. I like it. Monica, you get your creative genius and/or gremlin?
Yes. I had to screen share it, but I do have it on my screen.
Okay. You are the co-host. You can screen share.
Okie dokie. Let's have this little thing. Yeah.
You show me a drawing. I know exactly that it's yours when I see it.
I always tend to draw this face in variants for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Always something I go back to. And I put like tears in this because a lot of my art in like high school and like the beginning of me going to Webster, I always put like tears in portraits. So it's kind of just like me kind of going back to some sort of like comfort type of thing, you know? Like if I'm like just kind of in an art block and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, just go back to what you're comfortable with, and then you'll eventually like branch out into more things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of just like what I'm referencing with a little weird face right here.
It's your Liechtenstein trademark.
Yeah.
Sad girl.
Yes.
I dig it, but that's also because I have a tendency to, my default is also sad girl art.
Yeah.
It's what I do. It's what I like. It's where I go. That's great.
Thank you.
Right. Emily, do you have a creative critter for us?
Yes, hold on. I had the wrong headphone on. Yes, I do.
Also, I like that we have like an extra member like in our class that just keeps like.
Yeah, Sammy just walked by and goes, "Is that Monica's?" And I was like, "Yes, it is." She goes, "That's so cool. We're talking about you." Oh, I do need to screen share too.
Okay. Uno momento.
So,
okay.
Okay, I made my, it's kind of silly, but I kind of made myself like a monster because I feel like I'm kind of been like inhibiting myself recently, and like I feel like I get in my head too much. And recently when I've been doing portraits, I've started scribbling out the facial features. And so I just did this over a picture of myself, and because I just thought it would be fun, and because I think sometimes in my mind, like I am the one who kind of stops myself, or even gives myself inspiration. Like it's all just my brain, but I feel like I'm the one who critiques myself a little too hard sometimes.
Yeah, I think a lot of us do that.
Yeah.
It's
I think
not-
we talked about that like a week or two ago.
Uh-huh. I like that, but I like the idea that like you're using that as like, would you say that this is the demon or the creative?
Yeah.
So it's still a version of you.
Yeah.
It's just like it's the other side.
Yeah, it's like the demon version of myself.
Like the bizarro Emily that lives in
Yeah.
the world that has to come out. That's kind of nice though, because it's like really chaotic. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
maybe the you that shows up every day overthinks things, whereas like this Emily is just like, come on, man, everything's just color and line. Do it anyways. Yeah, I like it.
Thanks.
It's also very Francis Bacon-y if you're doing all these portraits where like the faces are like scribbled out.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you've never done a deep dive into like his portraits, do yourself a favor. It's creepy and weird and in the best way. All right. Okay, I think we got 3 people left. Sydney, do you have a creative demon for us?
Yeah. I have to share my screen.
Okay, hold on 1 second. And you're a little bit quiet, so.
Oh, can you hear
There
me?
we go. That's better.
Okay. Can you see it?
Give it 1 second. Yeah.
Okay, so I decided to kind of just draw 2 versions of myself. So I'm a Gemini, and this kind of represents the 2 sides to myself. I feel like there's times where like I'm good to myself, and like the things I make are good. I'm feeling good about it, and I'm focused on the task at hand, and I'm excited for what I want to do. But then other times I'm the exact opposite. Like I drag my feet, I'm lazy, I get off, I'm not focused, and like the things I make I don't think are as good as like other people's stuff.
Yeah.
So
So it's depictions of that struggle and which side of you decides to show up that day.
yeah.
Nice. That devil looks so mad. She's like not happy about being there.
Yeah, I tried to make them distinct.
No, it's good. I think it's actually it's a nice balanced composition. It's good. All right. 2 more. Alex. Welcome.
All right, sorry, I don't have mine. I have an idea for mine. I just didn't end up putting it together. But I was gonna have like a monster with a shirt that says like you're the epitome of mediocrity or something.
Oh, damn.
Like, cause it's like I'm like every time I'm making something, I'm like, oh, so mediocre.
Yeah, so you're going like the bully route that Jade went.
Yeah.
You need sort of a monster that hazes you in the studio to push you further. Do you think that that's helpful?
When I thought of like, no, I don't. Like, I probably should have approached it better and like
That feels like
a
balance
balance between like negativity and positivity.
Yeah.
But I'm a major like pessimist, which is a really bad quality. So I don't know. It kind of fits my work dynamic.
It'd be interesting to see what like the magical creative fairy optimist version of Alex looks like.
That's my boyfriend. He's like, we're like yin and yang. He's like,
I know. Maybe it's like a weird illustration of your boyfriend just kind of like sitting like angelic in the corner, like you can do it.
Because that's exactly him. He's always like, you're the best. I'm like, no, I'm not. Seriously, I'm terrible.
I mean, yeah, I think it's always helpful to have like somebody like that. So even when that person can't be there, maybe you'd find it beneficial to have like caricature version, like posted in the corner, kind of look at it and be like, I can do this.
Right.
I like your wall behind you, by the way.
Oh, thanks. I did it like with a cardboard stencil. I don't know. I had a really good, I had like a vision and it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, and I just haven't painted over it because I'm lazy. So.
Yeah, I'd say I keep the discussion boards open. So if you want to draw it up or draw whatever up and then post it.
Yeah.
Well, we got it. And then I don't know if you were logged in last week.
No, so last week I like left my laptop charger at my mom's house, and
No worries. I did want to let you know that I did record it last week.
okay.
Yeah. Well, we've been having like, I think the BFA like Thesis Show group has been meeting. We've had WAC meetings, so I've just been recording it in case anybody misses anything. Just trying to keep everybody up to date. So I just wanted to point that out. It is there. If you want to look at it or hear any of the discussion, it's there. All right. Last but not least, Liv, are you with us?
I am.
Are you still eating pasta?
No, I am not, but my tummy is full now. So
okay. You got something for us?
Yeah, can I screen share? I actually have two.
Yes, give me 1 second. Okay, you should be co-host.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So I'll start with the gremlin.
Yes.
Because she's the one that I actually drew specifically for the project. But so she doesn't have a name. I've drawn her multiple times in my life. She's like what I use for like vent art, I would say.
Okay.
To get like my frustrations out. And so I would consider her I also don't know why she's a wolf woman either, because like I don't relate to wolves. I don't like, if anybody asks me like what animal would you be if you could be an animal, I never say wolf. Wolf doesn't even cross my mind. Don't know why she's a wolf. But she's just, I don't know, she's a naked woman with a wolf head with arrows in her back, and she's just kind of like the epitome of my frustrations. And so I just kind of use her to get like anger and like, I can't do this thing, I'm just gonna draw her. She's what I use for that for the most part. But then I haven't drawn him in forever, but I thought I would show him because he's my baby. I haven't had to draw him, so because I've been so motivated, but he's my motivator. This fat frog.
Hello.
I'd like to doodle him a lot. He's definitely my like feel good, you can do this type of guy.
He's so happy.
He's very happy. I like him a lot. I need to name him, but I think I'm just gonna call him Fat Frog. I think Fat Frog.
I feel like Fat Frog doesn't judge what you do. Fat Frog is just supportive at all times.
He is very supportive. He's friend-shaped.
Yeah. He's soft. There's nothing about him that is like pointy.
Yeah, he's a good boy. He helps me. I usually doodle him like traditionally in like notebooks and stuff.
Oh my god. Do you know Anna Alt?
Yeah. She's a friend of mine.
I feel like I've seen Anna Alt share like various images of like fat frogs on Instagram like so often.
Yeah, I think I posted this to Instagram and she is one of the people who liked it.
Yeah. So I think I think maybe you're onto something. Like this is a creature we can all get behind.
Yeah, he's there for all of you if you ever need him. He'll give you a hug.
You guys, if you need support, Fat Frog is there for you.
Yes.
Awesome. That's great. I do think it is. I think what you're doing with the gremlin potentially could be productive too. Is the idea of like when you have that manic, not necessarily positive energy, still showing up and actually drawing something and just getting that out and personifying it, like might act as like an exercise of catharsis to get rid of that or get past it. So it's interesting to see that you have like that pattern of doing that. What'd you guys think of the video that I shared with you guys? I thought a lot of you guys looked a little down last week, so I thought it might be necessary to ask questions like, is art necessary? And give yourself a little bit of a reminder that, yeah, it is. Specifically, like, we don't know how necessary the art is that we make until maybe somebody else sees it, and then maybe, just maybe, they tell us that it makes an impact. But that the answer to that question is always yes. Maybe you're not fighting fascism with it, so perhaps it was a bit like heavy-handed of a video, but still. I did think it was at least an interesting brief watch. Any comments? You guys are looking tired today. All right, so we should talk about homework. It is Valentine's Day weekend. I know that the zine just came out. I believe it was being distributed and given out today in the printmaking studio. So if you guys are interested in getting a copy of that, that is now officially out and available. And I know that some of you guys may or may not have plans this weekend, so I don't want to completely ruin your weekend. In terms of homework, I think I'm actually going to go with a vast majority of the conversation that we had this week, which is, how do we start thinking about the future and taking steps towards prepping for what is to come? So your homework is going to be, look for an opportunity and apply to it, which is easier said than done. Choose wisely what opportunity you choose to apply to. Don't set yourself up, to absolutely have like a completely maddening experience. Don't pick something that has like 32, documents that need to be submitted with the application. Try to do something that is within the realm of possibility within the next week. Does that sound good? Okay. And then as you are applying to it, just write down the information, write down what type of opportunity it is. This is also going to act as sort of a billboard to sort of show one another what opportunities are out there. I know that for some of you guys, this is a new process. You guys asked about applying to graduate school. You asked about the mechanics of residency programs. So this is just one way that we're going to be able to essentially introduce different types of opportunity to one another, and then learn what's out there, what you can apply to with, your various backgrounds. Does that sound like something that is going to be beneficial to you guys? And then who knows, maybe I'll get some. Maybe not everybody, but maybe somebody will, and then we can give a thumbs up, round of applause to what opportunities might arise out of this. So all right, well, I don't want to hold you guys up for too much longer. I think we had a pretty good chat today. Again, I'll be posting the recording of today's class, along with just a reminder of the homework for everybody that wasn't able to be logged in. And yeah, that'll be in the discussion board. You guys can sort of give us a brief description of what y'all find this week to apply to, and we'll talk about it more in depth next week. And next week, I believe we have a awesome illustrator and printmaking artist who is actually the other half of the creative couple, the McFallses. We heard from Mike McFalls last semester. This upcoming Friday, next Friday, we're going to be hearing from Libby McFalls. She's a printmaker and does some really awesome work on a variety of different subjects. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it. All right. You guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you next Friday.
Thank you. Bye.
Right. Bye, y'all.